Hello everybody, welcome to a new video with me, Daniel. And this time I will speak about 10 mistakes that happen in audio recording and audio mixing and what you can do to make it better. So stay tuned. Yeah, because finally what we want to create is a large, big, huge sounding mix with depth, with physical integrity and a nice spectral balance, like that one.
It feels normal like falling. I keep on falling. It feels normal like...
Well, first of all, if we analyze sound, no matter why we are in a recording or in a mix, I feel that it's most easy if we divide it into 3 categories. On one side, we have spectral balance. That's everything that is related to, obviously, spectral balance, frequencies. If your mix sounds small, you don't have the spectral balance under control. Because if you have too much mids, everything sounds boxy. Then we have dimension, the second thing. Totally underrated and extremely important. As I said in my reverb Bible, no great mix without a great depth of field. If we don't have dimension, then we don't have depth of field, and then we cannot localize things. There is one rule: no instrument should share the same place like another instrument. If your guitar stands in the snare drum, well, then that's a huge fight. And moreover, it's something that could not happen in nature. On a concert, the guitar cannot stand in the snare drum. In a mix, that's very easy because the snare mic is totally close to the snare. The guitar mic is totally close to the guitar. You might want to pan both in the middle. So what do you have? Then you have a fight because both share the very same place in the speaker or in the listening place. That's a no-go. So either create space, and that's what is dimension all about. The tools are reverb, or you have to do it with panning or whatever. The third thing is physical integrity. And this is something you don't hear that often. Physical integrity is often referred to as punch. However, not in every musical genre you need always punch on a bass drum. In jazz, what we are looking for is sometimes punch, yes, but what for sure we always want to have is, if the bass drum had a certain size, like a 22-inch bass drum, we want to feel that, we want to hear it. A double bass has a huge volume in with him, the wood, way more than a violin. And our double bass, well, it should sound like a double bass. We don't want to hear the double bass like just a violin that was pitched down. If we record a Steinway D piano, 2.70 meters long, we want to feel that size. So if you don't have size correctly, your mix also sounds small. Not correct size is very often because of compression that are not set right or mistakes in the recording more later. Or if your dimension is not right, well, then again, everything sounds small. So fact is, if your mix still sounds small, it has to do with spectral balance not correct, dimension not correct, and physical integrity not correct. So we have to work on all those aspects. So we are not going to have great sounding tracks, we are going to have difficult sounding tracks. Let me quickly show you. This is the snare drum, and as you can hear, it sounds boxy. Now, fix it with an equalizer. The goal is to find the resonating frequencies. And we can add a little bit size. I will go through it quick. We can add a little bit snap. as we most likely lose level, we make it a little bit louder just to compare. Let's listen with the EQ, and then the trick is we hear some tones, then we switch it to bypass. That one's still too loud. And now I'm rather sure you think, wow, now where you hear the corrected version and then the bypassed version, the difference is way bigger than you thought when you didn't hear the corrected version. I think that when you didn't hear the corrected version, you didn't hear that disturbing resonance so loud, right? And this is because your brain is correcting everything for you, which makes it very difficult to mix, because if your brain corrects everything, well, how could you hear it then? It is all training. Train with these equalizers, try to find disturbing and nasty mid resonances, reduce them. And then, to make sure you got the right frequencies, listen to your corrected version for about 10 seconds or 20 seconds, then hit bypass, and then it should really sound clearly worse. If it doesn't sound clearly worse, if you hit the bypass, then you probably notched out the wrong frequencies, then you don't need that fix. You only need to fix if it clearly sounds worse in bypass. But first you have to fix it, and then you can hear whether your fix is right. So at the start, it might be a little bit trial and error. We do some more examples in a minute, but let's first quickly analyze why in today's recording do we have so often those disturbing mid resonances, and why were those resonances not there in old recording? And we can assume they were not there because they didn't have FET filter EQs that we can just notch them down so precisely. Well, the reason is room resonances are coming, well, you guess it, from the room. Now, if you have large recording rooms, like the old big studios, while the room resonance, the resonating frequencies of the room might be down to 20 hertz or even 10 hertz. And that usually sounds great. That gives you some extra ball, some extra size. Now, if the room is maybe not that big, but still generous, or maybe the resonating frequencies are around 50, 60 hertz, so that still helps the bass energy, and you don't have any problem in the mids. Now what happens if the room gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller? That's what we have today. Our rooms are as big as bathroom nowadays. The drum is in a small isolation booth, the guitar is in a small isolation booth. Well, the resonating frequency of the room comes up to between 300 and 600 hertz. So actually, those are the frequencies that we don't want to amplify, because those are also strong frequencies of the instruments. Because the instrument, like a piano with that wooden thing, also has some peaks between 500 and 600 hertz. Those are like the wolf tones of the instruments. That's not so much a problem. However, if you record it now in rooms that also amplify those frequencies, then we have a accumulation of mids, and this is not something nice. So I repeat it again, because our rooms are getting smaller, smaller, smaller. The resonating frequencies of the room comes to MIDI frequencies, and then that is not a good combination with the instrument that also resonates in the mids. But the instruments, they should, but the rooms should be fairly bigger, and then we wouldn't have the problem. Now, of course, budget is limited. We cannot always go to big rooms, and that's why, as an engineer, it needs to be trained to find those frequencies and to notch them out. And I have not mixed a single production in the last 20 years where I would not have done this. The better it's recorded, the less we can do it. But even on very good recordings, we have to do it, and it sounds better. The second reason why so many mixes are sounding small is missing dimension, no staging. And again, it's because we record in small rooms, we just have to do way more to stage the instruments later. Because if you have a big band or whatever in the old rooms, huge rooms, well, then the drummer is at the back. Just like if you record an orchestra nowadays, that's still recorded in concert room or in big studios because it just would not work otherwise. The timpani is at the back. The timpani plays, it comes to the main microphones, and the main microphone records it at the back, so no problem there. But today in pop or even jazz, every microphone has to be close. It has to be because the rooms are so small, and then the staging needs to come later. And actually here, a really important tip that I want to give is always use room microphones. And many engineers don't use room microphone if they record in small rooms and they say there's just no difference in sound. So it makes no sense to record a room microphone. That is totally bullshit. Let me show you. This is the overhead. Okay, overhead. And we have a room mic. And although the room was small, the room mic does not sound the same like the overhead mic. Yes, I agree, it's not super nice. However, we still can use it. Let's hear both together. And it's very clear that we get some more room. And now it comes a very cool trick. If we don't have room microphones and we have a recording where the dimension is so small like here because the rooms were tiny, well, what should we do then? Well, a very cool trick, just give a lot of reverb wherever you like, just on the room mics. So we use the room mics to create something larger. If we hadn't room mics, if here the engineer would not have used room mic, well then we would need to give a ton of reverb to the spot mic, to the overhead mics and to the close mic, just because otherwise the drum would never go to the back. But if room mics were given to us, well then we can just use those to create even a bigger room. Let me demonstrate it. We can directly do this on the insert. To be quick, let's just use Altiverb. And actually you can just really, if the room is so small, you could just leave it to 100% wet. And now this is like your distant source and you mix that now together with the overhead. Yeah, and I guess you get the picture. Now you don't need to use so much room or reverb on the overhead and on the snare microphone. You still would use, obviously, a little bit reverb. Now you could just have a nice reverb tail on the snare up to taste, but you don't need the close mics and the overhead mic to recreate the room that was not given to you in the recording because it would have been impossible because there was no room. So you have the room mics and those you can take to feed reverb and then it sounds way better. I have a short graphic for what I mean with this staging or with this creating depth of field. Usually we are able to place things between the phantom line. So whatever we have, we work with the pan pot, everything is in between. Either we work with panning, but then things are rather small. However, then as soon as we have piano, drum, double bass and guitar, well, we do have the fights, as you can see here. Moreover, if you want to have the grand piano big, maybe there is even a big band or orchestra, it's just everything is fighting. If you're not able to get stage, what we are left with is a fight, just no chance. Now, what we have to do is we have to make the room behind the speakers bigger. And this is the craft of a sound engineer. We have to be able to place things in a way bigger room behind the speakers. That room is virtual. I call it virtual because it is not physically there, but every good engineer can place things in this room. It's just totally important. And then our piano could be right, yet still big. The orchestra is at the back. The drum might be at the left in a jazz production. Or in pop, it might be super wide, but then the piano is a little bit more in front or more at the back. And then our singer can still be in front, yet he now can be big or large. And this is what we want. Trumpet, whatever, percussion. Now, even if you have a solo, you just maybe pan it to 10 degree and then the bass goes to 10 degree left and no fight. So in a good mix, you have place for everything, but only if you manage to get the staging to the depth. And how you do this, whether you use a lot of reverb, a lot of room mics, whether you use delay, or you might use other things, that's totally a matter of taste. Every engineer does this differently, but it's not a matter of taste that you do have to do it. And at the end, we want to forget the loudspeakers. And this entire thing must be robust. That's the most important thing. And another mix trick, your mix must be robust. Or it's maybe another trick because you cannot do that so easily. This comes with the training. What I mean with robust is that wherever my mix is played, be it in a kitchen, on a shabby radio, be it on an iPhone, on an Apple, be it on a super expensive hi-fi loudspeaker setup, I want to make sure that whatever art I have put in my mix is coming out on that loudspeakers. If somebody is listening it on an iPhone speakers, yeah, the bass frequencies are gone. Yet I still must make sure the bass is heard. It might sound a little bit smaller. That's a basic fact. But my mix must still work. And the same goes with this depth staging. And I can really recommend you to get the Reverb Bible if you are interested to learn this. That's about an 8-hour masterclass, just really only about reverb. Yeah, then another tip or another reason why many recordings sound small, both in terms of spectral balance and dimension. There is a mistake that I see all the time, and it's the use of the gobos. So usually those acoustic gobos are used to get rid of the wall reflections. Because the wall reflections, moreover, in small room, make the recording sound small. So many people use gobos. Like, in many drum rooms, I see that they use gobos behind the drum or wherever around the singer. I see a lot of gobos. And actually, to kill some wall reflections, it's not a bad idea to take a gobo. But what now happens is that with those gobos, many engineers build now a new room with the gobos that is even smaller than the recording room would be. And it is wrong if you think a gobo is just absorbing everything. No, that would be an ideal world, but we don't have an ideal world. What the gobo is absorbing is high frequency content. If I sing directly in a gobo, no high frequency content is reflected. However, what it's not able to absorb are the under mids and very often even the normal mids around 500. Well, they are reflected by that gobo because you cannot put so much acoustics in that mids would be absorbed. While for the bass, it's not that much a problem anymore because bass waves are so large that they just go around the gobos. To absorb something, the surface must be in a certain relation to the frequency. So what is reflected from the gobos are mids. Now, the closer you put the gobos around the singer, well, the more mid resonance you create. So you can absolutely use gobos, but where should you place them? Well, if you want to kill a wall reflection, where would the wall reflection be? If I'm the singer, I sing to this wall, there is exactly one point where there is a wall reflection. All the other points are not that much a problem because the waves are reflected away. So place the gobo there, or even place two gobos there, like with a foul, so that the rest reflections are not coming back to the microphone. Or if you really want to be close to the singer because you want some extra absorption, then place the gobos all in a way that the mids that are reflected by the gobos are not reflected to the microphone. Then you also have a chance. But in general, I repeat it, gobos very often are the reason again why makes the sound small, because we have this mid peak because of the reflections from the gobo. To place gobos in the right way, train it, it is really important. Now the last thing is physical integrity, and as I said already, physical integrity is the size of the instruments. And the smaller the room, or the smaller the instrument seems to be, because if reflections from wall are coming late back to the microphone, then we have the impression of a big room, because this is what happens in a large room, right? The piano is playing in a large room and it takes some time until the sound hits the walls and until it's coming back. So the way how we can recreate size is again with reverb. If we add a lot of pre-delay to the reverb, that's another trick. Add pre-delay and add shape to your reverbs. Most are only dealing with reverb time and size, but that's not even so important. But what is important is shape and pre-delay. And let me quickly demonstrate this. Let's say we want to be natural and not create additional size. Yeah, well, that would just sound more or less natural, but it's not euphonic, and for sure we have not increased size. Let's try to increase size. We just do what I said. We will have a little bit more size. Then more important, shape and spread. What shape and spread is doing, that it creates an envelope to it. Without shape and spread, your reverb is just there immediately and it goes away. But with shape, the reverb builds in a little bit more slow and it goes out a little bit more slow. So that gives us size. And we want to have some pre-delay that again simulates that the walls were far away. Now again, that's by far not the ideal setting, but in this direction you would go to create a large drum sound. Now, depending on what the other instruments are playing, you have to fine-tune it. But now what happens is that you really hear a clear slapback from a virtual wall behind the speakers, and this is what gives size. Now the other thing what gives size, or the other reason why you so often lose size, is that music is recorded with too much dynamic nowadays, because we don't have tapes anymore. We have computers with AE converters, and the dynamic is just recorded as it was produced by the musicians. And while some sound engineers and moreover some musicians think that's a great idea to record the entire dynamic, I say no, it is not. Because, well, we are giving the control over the final level to our listeners. And our listeners will listen to the music way lower than we might want they would listen. Now, in original dynamic, well, a musician is playing in a way that all harmonics are always there. If you don't know what harmonics is, Google it, that's really important. But basically, every tone that every instrument can play or every musician plays has like its bass frequency, and then it has harmonics that go up to 20 or even higher to 40 kilohertz. So basically whatever tone is played, like a double bass plays the deepest tones, but it's full of harmonics that go up to the highest possible frequency. And those upper harmonics are usually softer than the bass frequency of the tone. So usually the harmonic, it's like a decrease. Those higher harmonics are absolutely important for size and for sonic beauty. Now what happens if you record them with original dynamic? Well, basically you could see this is like one tone, play loud. I painted here like a line. That's the maximum level that in an audition room someone can still take. That's the minimum level musicians are playing, so that all harmonics, also very high ones, are played. Now at home, I go through this really quickly. At home, well, the window in which we can hear sounds is way more smaller. At home, we never want to hear a snare hit as loud as it was played in the recording room, so the level is brought down. That's also the first thing that you do if you listen to music, even on an iPhone. You just set the level to a comfortable level for you, for the situation. Maybe you have guests, and then the music goes again more down. So actually, this home maximum is already quite loud. And then we have a minimum, and the minimum level is also higher than in a real good audition room. Why? Well, just because you might have a fridge, you might have kids, you might hear birds from outside, you might hear a car from outside, you might hear the heating system. There's a lot of ground noise. So now, if you record original dynamic, what happens at home? It's brought down. So at home, you turn down the volume so that the loudest possible sound is at a level that you are comfortable with. Now what happens with the harmonics? They are even more down than before. And if you look now how far they are away from the home minimum, well, I say that's just no chance at all that those upper harmonics could be heard at home. So what is heard at home is just what is in this line, in this window. That's just really not that much. Maybe you hear 5 harmonics, whatever, but you just won't hear a lot. So this is what you hear at home, and this is what you don't hear, and that's like the maximum. It's like an iceberg in the water where you just see the tip of it or the top of it, but the most part is under the water. But yeah, if you don't see it, we have Titanic. And here is the same problem. If you mix like that, well, all those harmonics, the gray one, are not there. What we have to do is we have to make sure that all harmonics, or I say whatever have been produced by the musicians, is important. So every harmonics, be it as quiet as it is, I want to make sure it's there. And that is preserving dynamics. And in the old days, with tape, it did it automatically for you because tape had not a lot of dynamic. So you usually went in with a high level. So snare and loud things were already compressed by the tape. And tape already helped to really reduce dynamic. With a tape, you could never ever have recorded 100 dBs of dynamics, maybe 60. Yeah, but this is a point that we have to do. There are many ways how we do it, but one point is compression, and I quickly make you some examples. And let's really make this totally easy. We just work with that one. As this is an easy tips and trick lesson, let's always use the same compressor. Let's just always use more or less the same settings. Let's just go with the input up until it starts to compress 3 dB. Let's not do anything, and the only thing I will change is at the snare. I will make a slightly shorter release time. On all the other instruments, we just leave it with the bass settings. Okay, use the same compressor here, and we basically choose the better mode. Blue mode gives you more distortion. That's fine for now. Kick doesn't need compression. Should we compress the room mic? Well, why not? It gives a little bit more size. Let's real quickly make something with the guitar. Again, it's boxy sounding. let's add a little bit of reverb. And compression. Good. Let's quickly balance it. Yeah, and of course, no question that's far away from a great mix. But I quickly play you this back, and then I set all the plugins and everything we did to bypass. Yeah, this really just very quick. Of course, it's far away from a mix, but just to demonstrate those things that we said. We want to clean up spectral balance. We want to more or less create a depth of field or a staging. Watch my other videos for how this is working. This video is too short to really also create that. And we want to create size, which we can by adjusting the reverb with more shape and more pre-delay, and by also compressing things in a nice way. If you're not sure how to compress, maybe just look at the gain reduction needle, just hardly does more than 3 dB. And that's basically how we improve spectral balance, dimension, physical integrity, just get better a little bit at every stage. If you want to know more about this, I can heavily recommend you watch the Mixing Bible. It's paid course, but it really goes in detail. And all my Bibles focus on conceptual understanding. We then also have practical courses in which we mix something from start to finish, where we actually make sure it sounds good at the end. That requires obviously some time. And at the end, well, the most important thing is to understand that music in a real room is not the same like music in a speaker. And I created this graphic here for my Reverb Bible. In the Reverb Bible, there are a lot more cool graphics. But I tried to basically, we have here 3 instruments. And the solid color is the direct sound coming to the hearing system. But then, as you see, all the reflections are coming from different directions in the real room. And our hearing system, or I should say our brain, is actually localizing those reflections. So that's why music sounds so nice in a real room. We are surrendered by sound. This is something we like. Now, no matter how great you record those reflections, if you are giving them to the loudspeakers, if you have room microphones, you give them to the loudspeakers, well, nice, but now they are all coming from the same direction because they are produced all by the loudspeaker membrane. They are not coming from the back anymore. They are not coming from above anymore. They are not coming from the floor anymore. The only place where they are coming from is the loudspeakers. And this is again why it's so important to create the illusion of a real staging, because what we see here, music on speaker, is exactly what we don't want to hear. We don't want to localize the speakers, but that's exactly what happens in a bad or in a not so good mix. While the music is given to the loudspeakers, we have paper membranes that are basically swinging, and if the mix is not great, we localize the speakers, and then at the end our mix can only sound small, because it's only big if you get the sounds behind the speakers. This is really all the magic. Yeah, check out my Bibles if you want. I hope I could catch some interest. There are some free YouTube tutorials also. If you enter my name in YouTube, you'll find it. And have fun mixing. And I hope this one helped you. Bye.